So 2024 is the year of elections. As many as 50 countries around the world are going to be going to polls. We've had polls here in India just this past week, in Britain and France. But the big one is the US election later this year. And there seems to be almost a chorus now building that Joe Biden, the incumbent president, should drop out of the race and make way for a younger Democratic face. And this is particularly after the CNN debate last week, where he was thought to have performed poorly. So let's try and make sense of the US race so far, this whole churning that we're seeing in the democratic world. All of that, try and make sense with Mr. Mukesh Aghi. He's the president and CEO of the US-India Strategic Partnership Forum. Thank you very much and welcome back to India.
Thank you.
So let's start with this whole chatter around President Biden and whether he should run for office again. Is he fit enough to run for office again? And particularly, it's been accentuated after the CNN debate performance. What is your view? Do you think he is there? Is he fit enough, mentally agile enough to do the job again for another term?
Well, you have a massive debate happening on that issue. And you have within the Democratic Party multiple camps. Some camps are saying, hey, let's support him. Yesterday, the U.S. Senate among the Democratic Party met and they advised President Biden not to run. Then you had the Black Caucus on the House side said we will support for him to run itself. Then you have large donors who are basically holding off giving money, saying that they want a newer, younger candidate, because all polls numbers are showing that today, if elections are held, that Trump will beat President Biden. So I think for Democratic Party, in order to save the Senate, in order to save the House and the White House itself, they have to make a decision and move forward itself. They can't live in the current turmoil.
If he were to decide not to run, who then is best placed, according to you, to be the Democratic nominee?
Well, again, three broad camps there. You have a camp within the White House saying that Vice President Kamala Harris should run. And then you have another camp which is saying basically the governor of California, along with Gretchen from Michigan, should run. And they have another camp which is basically wooing Gina Raimondo to consider for running. So I think all three are debating. I think they have to decide in the next 2 weeks. One candidate, go behind the candidate and make it happen then.
Let's say if it is Kamala Harris, and I want you to walk our viewers through what are her advantages and what are her disadvantages, because ultimately, whoever that candidate is has to go up against Trump and be able to beat Trump in November. You think she can do it?
So you have Biden-Harris campaign, which has accumulated hundreds of millions of dollars towards campaign funding. Anybody who runs that will require almost $1 billion to run. So that's the advantage she has. The fundamental question is, can she woo the younger voter? Can she woo the middle to the right voters? Can she get the business community backing her? That's the question which we need to answer.
So let's talk about the other side, which is Trump. It's almost certain that he will be the nominee. They're going to have the convention in a few days from now. How should India view a Trump 2.0 presidency, which is more than likely?
Well, you have to look at Trump 1.0 presidency. He was good for India in every aspect. Yes, he took away GSP. The challenge is going to be while Biden presidency is much more structured, Trump will be much more transactional. It'll be whimsical. So I think we'll have to basically eat the bullets when you talk about Harley Davidson and others, and more will come from that perspective. So I think we need to have a thick skin to deal with that itself. So I think overall Trump presidency or Biden presidency, both are good for India, because it's not about a president. It's about the geopolitical environment. It's about the economic relationship. In every aspect, US-India relationship is going to strengthen as time goes by.
But there's a big fear that if Trump comes, he'll pull out of NATO, he will leave Ukraine to fight its own wars. He will really not care about the rest of the world as much as, let's say, a Democratic presidency would do. Wouldn't that be concerning for India, particularly in the context of China?
Well, if you look at from every aspect, Trump will get much more aggressive on China. Will put in more tariffs. And India plays a pivotal role because a lot of US companies would like to de-risk from China as Trump comes in. So more traffic, more companies will move into India from that perspective. He also sees India as a counterbalance to China from a military perspective also. So I think if Trump comes in, pulls out of NATO, pulls out of Ukraine, I don't think that has an impact on India. impact will be more from China. It'll be beneficial for India if Trump takes a much more stringent, strong stance against China.
I do want to ask you, we've been talking about this de-risking, decoupling from China since COVID happened. It's been 4 years. What do Indian companies need to do to try and be the beneficiaries, if you will, of this de-risking by global companies, including American companies?
Well, we should look at Vietnam. I mean, Vietnam has been able to attract more companies than India. And why? Because it's a very speedy process. Ease of doing is much, much easier. Tax structures are simpler. Dispute resolution is much, much faster. And ease of doing business is much more expedient. So I think we have to look at Vietnam as a model and try to basically emulate that. The challenge we have is India is not one country. You have states. Every state has different policy, and somehow we need to streamline between central government and the state government some of those policies itself.
I do want to talk a little bit about India. India, of course, had elections recently in the summer, and I'm sure it was very keenly watched stateside as well. What's the view now of Modi 3.0, the view from, let's say, Washington?
Well, you have to look at the noise we were hearing was India's democracy is fading. India is becoming much more autocratic. India's human rights are being violated. And after this election, suddenly everybody is saying India is a role model for democracy. India is a country everybody should emulate. The transition of power happened so smoothly. There was no storming of the Capitol. There was no lawsuits itself. So India has become an example for the world as a democratic country.
So what does that tell you? Does that tell you that that whole perception of democratic backsliding was basically because some people did not like Modi, and now that he's got a reduced mandate, it seems like, okay, the Indian people can decide what's best for themselves?
No, absolutely. I think the issue was not India. The issue from their perspective was Modi. The issue was BJP, so they were targeting that. If you read the stories in New York Times, Washington Post, Financial Times, or Economist, and now suddenly they've changed their tunes itself. India has become a role model for democracy.
What is the view, though, of Rahul Gandhi? Of course, he's done well. The Congress has done well. They've gone from 52 to 99 seats. The opposition bloc is now a substantial bloc in Parliament. I don't know if you got a chance to see the first few days of the recent Parliament session. He's now the leader of the opposition. Is there a view that his time will come, or that he's getting himself ready for the top job?
Well, I think he's still an unknown commodity in the US.
Okay.
And I think that's where he has to come out, basically talk about his policy agenda, talk about his foreign policy positioning itself. Because so far, what we have seen so far in the parliament is opposition to everything.
Yeah.
I think they have to change their stance, talk about how they can do things better for the country, how they can build better foreign relationship. The substance has to come out for the world to get to know Rahul Gandhi.
I do want to talk to you about some of the other elections that have happened recently in Britain. There is now a Labour government, first time back in power after 2005 elections. And then you have in France the surprise election where the surprise left-wing alliance seems poised to form a government. Where do you see this coming from? I mean, there's been a lot of talk about a cost of living crisis. People in the bottom end of the pyramid are really feeling the heat because of the Ukraine war and other reasons, COVID, etc. Do you see a sort of political correction happening?
I think it's a combination of multiple things. One is in UK for 14 years of conservative, people wanted change. But also more important is the disparity of income gap is getting bigger and bigger. It's not just only UK. It's in France, it's in the US, it's around the world itself.
Even in India, actually.
Even in India also. Yeah. So I think that has to be corrected itself. You look at France. I mean, say we thought Marine Le Pen team will come and take over, but the left united and took over itself. Again, there was the issue of unemployment, the issue of income disparity itself. So I think this momentum moving to the left is suddenly picking up.
Okay.
And we'll see what happens in the US. But what we are seeing is people are saying, we are not well off. We need to have a better sense of income, better sense of living itself. So that momentum has picked up quite a bit.
What about on the issue of immigration? Because that was also a big lightning rod issue, whether it's in the UK or France or even in the US. I know immigration and this whole business of illegal immigration is a big talking point. So the view from the right is, they're here illegally, they need to be thrown back to the countries that they've come from. And the view from the left is, we need these people because we need labor. How do you see the whole immigration debate now playing out in light of these elections?
Well, you have to understand the income disparity plays into immigration, especially illegal immigration itself. And as you try to correct income disparity, I mean, say if you look at the third largest illegal people crossing into United States are Indians now. And so, number one is Mexican, then El Salvadoran, and then Indians itself. If you look at France, you have people coming from North Africa itself. You look at UK also. I think you have to find a balance. When you go into Europe, the older population is not contributing to social security system. They're not contributing towards the income tax. You need younger population, but when you're having a lesser birth rate itself, you need immigration to fill in. So I think every country needs to look at it from that perspective, find the right balance, and adjust, fine-tune the immigration policies.
All right, and final word. So come this November, what's the new White House going to look like? Is it going to be a Trump presidency? Is it going to be a Biden returning back to power? Is it going to be another Democratic candidate? What is your crystal ball gazing as far as November 2024 is concerned?
It's so early to say. You have 4 months left. A lot can happen between the 4 months itself. And you have to understand, it's the last 1 week which kind of makes a difference. It's the last one day when you get the vote out that makes the difference itself.